Welcome to Between Two Coaches, a digital mentors podcast for visionary coaches, consultants, authors, and experts building purpose-driven businesses. I'm your host, Norbert Orlewicz, co-founder of Digital Mentors, and in every episode, we're going to dive into real, unfiltered conversations with thought leaders, mentors, and catalysts who are reshaping the way that we teach, lead, and grow. Now, this episode, as always, is sponsored by our Digital Mentors Compass workshop. If you are a coach or expert struggling to stand out in the marketplace and enroll more clients consistently, this workshop was built for you. It's a strategic experience that combines expert mentorship and AI-assisted tools designed to simplify your message and sharpen your marketing strategy. You're going to walk away with a personalized marketing blueprint built for your business, your goals, and your voice. It's simple, it's smart, and it works. And you can grab a free ticket to the next live session at compassworkshop.com. Again, that is compassworkshop.com. Now, today's guest is Olaolu Ogunyemi. He is a U.S. Marine officer, father, and award-winning author who helps parents, leaders, and children build resilience and lead with purpose. Now, he grew up firsthand seeing how easy it is for young people to be pulled in the wrong direction. I think as parents, we can see that, especially in today's world. And that experience has shaped his mission to help families and communities raise strong, grounded leaders. Through his platform, Parent Child Connect, his award-winning book, Crow from the Shadow, and his upcoming release, Lead Last, Olaolu shares lessons from the military, from parenting and writing, that teaches how to lead with intention and thrive through adversity. Olaolu, welcome to this conversation. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Norbert. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Man, that intro is awesome. Sometimes I forget who people are talking about when they're reading all that intro and bringing me in, but I definitely appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation.
Well, listen, you've got an amazing story, honestly, and a lot of, experience, I think and I love your mission and your purpose. I can really get behind that. And we need more leaders like yourself, inspiring the young leaders in our communities, because there seems to be sort of a lack of leadership, from my perspective, in the world today. And so we need more good men and women like yourself to take on that hat, and I love it. And this is kind of a great place to start. I want to go a little bit deep and talk about this. We live in a pretty crazy world right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of distraction with social media, and it affects every single person: employees, workers, entrepreneurs, parents, families, and especially our youth, our kids. And so from your perspective, why do you think that your work and mentorship and leadership development are more important today than ever before?
Yeah, phenomenal question. The reason I believe that our work is important, and I say our because it's obviously your work as well, is because we're in a world where information is just out of this world crazy. Like everybody has information at their fingertips. And the more information, in theory, like I used to think growing up, if we have more information, we have more things, more computers, more technology, it just makes us more intelligent. But there's something different happening that I've recognized, and I'm in the IT world myself. The thing that I recognize is that a lot of us are starting to just receive information, and it's getting overwhelming, and it's increasing anxiety. And the problem with that is for our young leaders and our children is that they don't understand how to deal with what they're dealing with right now. Without our guidance, they're going to be crushed by the amount of information and anxiety and things that are coming their way at a cyclic rate. Now, I look at people and I tell them, I'd never tell anybody I'm old in any stretch of imagination. I'm in my mid 30s and I would never even pretend to be old. But I do remember my first cell phone, and that was in high school going into college. And that I could play Snake on that phone, and maybe I could browse the internet, right? But I had to pay 10 cents for a text message, so I definitely wasn't paying for internet plan, right? So the way that they receive information is just so much different. And I believe that's why mentorship is important. It's because they need somebody to guide them through in such a way that it hasn't been in the past. And I believe that we've now turned a little bit to try to allow people to come to their own enlightenment and allow children to come to their own enlightenment. And I think that's where we made our mistake. We have to get back into our children's world. We have to get back into helping to grow them and mentor and guide them and nurture them, and not just have them try to figure it out for themselves. So that's why I believe it's more important now than ever.
So you mean kids need parents to be their leaders, not their best friends?
Mm.
Mm.
I'm glad you said that. You know, what's interesting is when I wrote my children's books, I decided to self-publish, and one of the major reasons, aside from the agencies that didn't accept me, one of the major reasons was that traditional publishers, as I was talking to some of the agents and some of the other people who were working helping me throughout the process, they said traditional publishers don't want books where children are sitting down with parents and working through a problem set. They don't want an adult and a child, or an older person and a child in the book, to try to help work them through the scenario. They want them to read a book and almost come to enlightenment themselves. And I started thinking about that. I was like, well, that's crazy. I grew up, my parents reading to me. I grew up with all these mentors who kept me out of trouble. It just seemed foreign to me. But then I started thinking about the greatest Disney movie of all times, hands down, which is Lion King. And I compared that to the movie Frozen. And if you really look at those two movies, what happened in that movie? In one movie, you had a strong adult figure throughout the entire movie, whether it's Mufasa in the beginning or whether it transitioned to Timon and Pumbaa or Rafiki. There's always an adult that was helping Simba through his journey. Then you look at Frozen. The adults died in like the first 5 minutes, right? And now you have this peer leadership happening, and there's this theory and this narrative that that's a way to live. You know, they can work together and they can solve problems. And I believe that's the biggest farce that we're operating under right now. It's a great movie. I think Frozen is a great movie, and I'm not knocking it. But I believe we're working under that false assumption, and it's not helping us as parents, and it's definitely not helping our children. We have to get back into their lives and mentor and guide them.
God, you are touching on some things that I could just go off on right now. We could take this into a completely different direction, but I'm going to try to stay focused, okay? Because I can just see that we have a lot of, we share a lot of the same common values, probably, for sure, 100%. Now, coaching, the coaching experience, and many of our listeners here understand that coaching is all about transformation. And most of us get into the world of coaching and mentorship because we ourselves experienced some pivotal point in our life, some kind of experience that shifted us, that changed us, that transformed us. For you, you say that you could have easily become a statistic growing up, but something for you shifted. There was a turning point. Can you talk to us a little bit about that transformation, that turning point that shifted your trajectory and then really shaped you into the man and the leader that you've become?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had somebody who never gave up. Those my parents, especially my dad, because there's a lot of guys who I grew up with because I just wanted to fit in. That was my biggest thing. I was insecure and I wanted to fit in, and the crowd that allowed me to fit in were the guys who were just doing some things that weren't right, you know. And I felt like that was my way of fitting in, because if they told me to go do this, if I go a step further, then you know they seem to accept me for who I am. And that was the tough part because I grew up in a loving family. I had five siblings and a mother and father at home, and they all loved and supported me. But I just felt like there was something missing. But the biggest thing that for me, and I guess the turning point in my life, was having someone who was willing to tell me no. And if it weren't for my dad telling me no in those critical moments when I was about to go out and do these things, and he knew, it's almost like he had that sixth sense that told him that I was lying about where I was about to go, or I was doing something that I knew was going to lead to trouble, and he's just inserting himself at the right moment. And I believe that the pivotal point for me is him being in my life and him being able to stop me and tell me no. And that's why I'm so big on mentorship, obviously, because I look at a lot of my friends now, and we grew up in these almost parallel worlds, and I can easily see because of my father's influence. I was going when I got in trouble in the classroom. They told me, they threatened me by saying, "My dad will call your dad," and that's how I straightened up. For my buddies, they'll put them in the back of the classroom and they'll just let them do whatever they have to do, and then they pass them from grade to grade until they got old enough to drop out of school. And that's where I realized that the pivotal moment for me wasn't just a singular moment. It was the fact that somebody over the years kept making small investment into my life. All my dad and all the mentors, my uncles, my brothers, my sisters, even my mom, everybody was putting investments in me to help me go along the way. So when I got older and I had my own child, that also taught me the importance of being a leader, because I was a young parent. I'm still a young parent, obviously. But I was, 22 years old when I graduated college, and I was married with a 3-year-old. So I had a very, very young parenting journey. And so I had to learn very quickly how to grow up. And I had to learn very quickly that every decision I make was no longer about me. And that's where I think the big transition from childhood to adult happened when I realized that every decision I make or every sacrifice I'm making is for my family. And so I would say those are probably the big things that really changed the trajectory of my life.
So you've got a teenager or coming up on teenager then, right?
Oh yeah, I have a 16-year-old.
Oh
It's
yeah,
insane. It's
16-year-old.
insane.
Yeah, that's awesome. We got together. We have 4 kids, and they're just moving through teenagehood. We got 2 in college and 2 just finishing high school. And I tell you, man, those teenage years are challenging. They challenge you as a leader because all of a sudden now your kids have so many other influences. When they're little, it's mainly you and, who they surround. But then later on, it's their peers, it's the school, it's social media, it's the teachers, it's the schools, it's the media they're exposed to. There's so many influences. How do we navigate that as parents? What is some advice that you can give? You already kind of clued in there. You said that one of the gifts that your dad gave you was saying no,
Mhm,
was setting boundaries.
mhm.
And yet there seems to be this philosophy, again, this kind of battling philosophy that I'm definitely aware of in the world because I had to face it as I was parenting my daughter, my teenage daughter. There's this philosophy about kindness in leadership, being kind and being nice, and letting people sort of figure things out on your own, just like you kind of said with the 2 stories between Lion King and Frozen. With all of that said, what is some guidance that you can give to parents around this idea of setting boundaries, being firm, and being that leader that your kids require, not necessarily the friend that you think that they might want?
Oh, absolutely. So I love that. First of all, I got to stop on boundaries because a lot of times we view boundaries as such this restrictive and this draconian thing, but in reality, boundaries are they're there for the safety and the growth of the child. It's no different from if you were to have a pot. You don't go out and plant a new seed in the middle of your yard and just say, "Well, we'll see what happens. We'll see if it grows into an apple tree." No, you start it off potentially in a Ziploc bag on a paper towel. So that way the seed can germinate. And then you move that to a smaller pot. And then you move it to a bigger pot. Those boundaries are in place for a reason. And I had to learn this from not having a green thumb myself. I actually was killing plants myself. But what I learned is if you put a plant that's too small in a larger environment or a larger flower pot, you can cause that plant to die. You can cause root rot. You can cause all these things. So those boundaries are there to protect the child and to help the child grow into what you believe that they should be and what they're supposed to be on this earth for. So that's one of the first things, set boundaries and make sure you are having those firm boundaries in place and continue to talk to them about it. And then the second thing is get into their world. You were talking about the influences, but there's no way to know what's influencing them if you're not connected. You have to be
Mm.
connected to them. You have to be talking to them and seeing what they're doing. Sit down and watch the shows, see what books they're reading, see what they're doing on social media. If they have social media, follow them. Make sure that you're in there, not just following them, but make sure you're in their friends, the close friends, and all this other stuff and all the other ways to hide. But just what you're doing is you are a part of their world for the rest of their lives. My dad, he's still a part of my world. My mom is still a part of my world. They are always going to be in your world and vice versa. So make that an early habit and make it a continual habit. And the way I always recommend it is don't wait for tragedy to come or wait for some tension to come before you establish a connection. I think that's where a lot of us lose as parents. When we want to have a serious conversation, that's the first time we sit down on their bed or sit down kneecap to kneecap and have a conversation. No, you got to do that when times are good. You got to establish those moments. You got to find out what their hobbies are and the things they enjoy. And then, of course, encourage them to do the things you enjoy too, because this is a world in which we have to understand that the friendship is not all about you. This world doesn't revolve around you. I had to teach my oldest daughter that because I created that world for her because I wanted her to have everything. And I created this world that basically revolves around her. And then I had to back off and say, okay, listen, I was wrong. I started off where I was running, chasing you in Chuck E. Cheese. I was doing everything for you. All these things I was doing for her. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm actually spoiling this child. And some of us look at that and we carry that term with like endearment. But in no other way, no other context do we think spoiling is good. And it's not good for parenting either. So those are the kind of things I would recommend. I would say boundaries and guardrails are extremely important for their growth. And then establishing that connection before times get hard and finding ways like conversations with them, watch the movies with them. For teenagers, you still can read with them, but instead of framing it as a nighttime story where like with a 6-year-old, perhaps you can frame it as a book club. Figure out what book. You pick a book one month, and then you guys read together, and then the next month they pick a book. And it may not be something that you're entirely interested in, but maybe you can dive into it. Perhaps you can use AI to even learn about the summary about it, just so you can have a conversation. You have to find some common ground for you guys to work through. So that connection is extremely important.
Yeah. Yeah. What a journey, parenthood. I had that same lesson as you share that about spoiling your kids. Totally had that same lesson. Absolutely. One of the things that you talk about is resilience and adversity, dealing with adversity. And as parents, you know, we're a little bit different generations, but still very close, maybe about 10 years apart. I definitely spoiled my kids in many ways. I could see that. I can see how I tried to protect them from adversity and challenges and all that kind of stuff, but it's a part of their childhood. When the pandemic hit a few years ago, that was a difficult, challenging time. They had to adapt to so many changes and things that, they didn't like and weren't happy about. In social media, there's so much conflict in high school with their peers and all that kind. So much conflict, so much adversity that kids deal with, and I think we really have to appreciate that. What is your message around resilience and adversity? How do you help parents and kids navigate all of the challenges from social media, society? You look at the news. I mean, some of these events that happen on the news now, the kids have access to this content on their phones. We think about the tragedy that happened just a couple months ago. They literally saw a man get shot on their videos. Every single one of them saw that video. This is not stuff that we had to deal with before. How do you coach and guide parents and kids to navigate all of this adversity? And how does your Marine background fit into this as well?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's funny that you asked that question because usually what I do is I start off with the parent first. Because before we could talk about leadership and finding ways to influence anybody else, we have to get to know ourselves and we have to know what we do to influence that child. And so when you talk about the Marine Corps, what it does is it helps me to frame things, it helps me organize things in a way. And the way I compartmentalize things when it comes to parenting through adversity is I realize that we tend to pop when we face adversity or we notice our children face adversity. Now, of course, that's a corny acronym, Norbert, sir. You have to stay with me. So I call it POP-C, so POP-C. So the first P stands for project. We tend to project our feelings and emotions on the child, which is it's tough because the child is going through a lot. We see it happening, and then we feel the anxiety. So we're almost like, well, man, they must be feeling that. And we tend to project on them, and sometimes we may not be accurate. Now, here's the tricky part, because you'll hear me recommend to be transparent with our emotions so they can see how we are able to overcome adversity and things of that nature. But right now, I'm talking about projecting our feelings and emotions. So it's something you have to think about when you're projecting or you're trying to show your emotions. Be sure that you're not trying to force your emotions upon them is what I recommend to people. So that's the first thing. The O is overcompensate. So in many ways, as soon as something happens, we tend to overcompensate, especially if it happens directly to the child. We just want to make them feel better. And I understand. My son, he was diagnosed with complex partial epilepsy. And the first time I saw him have a seizure, man, that was tough, right? It was a very tough thing. And so over time, I'm just like, man, we need to, as soon as it happens, I'm like, man, I need to go take him and maybe go get us some ice cream and get him McDonald's or something like that. Come to find out, the kid didn't even know what was going on. He had no recollection of the event whatsoever. At times, he will wake up in the hospital, look around. He's like, what's going on here? He looks at us. He's like, were you guys crying? And so we're trying to overcompensate and make him feel better. And the guy feels fine, right? He's not even thinking about that. So that's some of the things that we have to think about. And a lot of times we just want to protect them from further harm, which I think is admirable. But just have to be careful that we're not overcompensating and micromanaging them in order to protect them. The second P is pretend nothing happened. And that's a tough one because a lot of times, especially when you're talking to like the Marine Corps, sometimes that type A personality, or sometimes when people just want to try to keep them children in that standard, that baseline. Sometimes you have to know when it's time to move away from the status quo or the old baseline. So say you had a traumatic event that happened, or say that you're going through a divorce or something like that. A lot of times we wanted to just pretend nothing happened and just keep moving forward. We don't want to talk to them about it. We just want to make sure that okay. You wake up at 8, you go to school at this time, you come to bed at this time. And that's just not an effective way to deal with that situation. And sometimes you may need to try to return to some kind of norm. But most times, and a lot of times when they face adversity, we need to go back and figure out what the new baseline is and work with them. And then the last thing is control. That's the C. We try to control everything. I am a chief offender of that. We try to control every single thing. And a lot of things are outside of our control. And like I said, when my son was diagnosed, I was staying up late at night, and that was causing me more anxiety and more stress because I'm like searching. I'm looking at medicine in Eastern, like in India, trying to figure out, okay, what can he do to get healed? What can I do to help him? I'm reading articles from Johns Hopkins and Duke and all these things. And I'm just trying to control this situation and figure out how I can best lead my family through it. But in reality, what my wife needed, what my kids needed, was a father who was present, a father who was rested, and a father who was emotionally available to them so I could help guide them through this tough time because it wasn't anything I could do. I'm not a neurologist, neither am I actually going to be able to take them to some random place in India like I thought I would and get them some care, right? But that's just some of the things that we talk about. So that's top C. So you project, overcompensate, pretend nothing's happened, or control. And that's what I always tell parents. Like when you're dealing with a world where a lot of crazy things are happening, first of all, check your response. Check what you're doing. Check if you are even in the emotional space to be able to lead your child through that adverse situation. And don't be afraid to reach out to your community to help you guide them through it because we don't have all the answers. And I was raised by a community of people who would call my dad and call my parents if I was acting up, or they'll call if I'm doing great. It wasn't just my parents, and they know everything that's best for me. So don't be afraid to reach out to your community and work alongside with them. And I believe that's how we're able to work with children to get them through adverse situations.
Nice. Awesome. Love it. Love it. Awesome. All right. I'm gonna shift the conversation just a little bit. I want to talk about you and your career. And really for the coaches out there listening, because we have a lot of coaches that many of them are just starting a coaching business. And when I say coaching, I'm really broad. That's why we're called digital mentors, is because we believe in the coaching, mentorship, and education industry as one whole. Whether you're doing one-on-one coaching, group coaching, or you're looking to become a thought leader and grow your personal brand and maybe monetize through speaking engagements or digital courses or building a community, there's so many different ways to monetize and grow your impact. And that's really what we're talking about. But I think you've built a pretty awesome brand, and you've become an author with an award-winning book. You're writing a new book, which we're going to talk about in just a second. What has you learned over the last few years trying to make an impact with this mission that obviously is so close to your heart, that's based around you, doing something that's obviously fulfilling to you as well? I can tell that this business is not about the money, and yet you have to make money to pay the bills and take care of your family. What are some of the big lessons that you've learned when it comes to marketing and growing your business and growing your brand? What's worked? What hasn't worked? How have you been able to accomplish what you have been able to accomplish?
Yes, that's a perfect way to segue because you start right there where you just said it's not about the money, but you need money to run the business. And so my first mistake is treating my business as just a passion project. And that's, if you treat it as a passion project, I can assure you that everybody that you come in contact with when you're trying to work with people, when you're trying to pitch, they're going to treat it the same way. They're going to treat it as if they got it for free. And typically, when you get something for free, you don't remember it. You don't think about it. It just sort of goes in one ear and out the other. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to give away free products. I have free products or resources on my website. But what I am saying is if everything is treated as if you're just a big charity, you're going to tend to be looked over. And I learned that the hard way. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned. Another lesson I learned is refining your pitch and refining your offerings. A lot of times when I'm working with people who say, man, I want to make to the next level. It's funny because I look back and I'm like, dude, that was me just a few months ago. But it's like, I'm trying to make it to that next level, whatever that is. But then you start talking to people, you start meeting people, whether it be through LinkedIn or whether it be through just events that you're having, people that you know. Networking is really important. But you don't know what your true pitch is. And I wrote about this on a blog. I talked about how I almost completely ruined an opportunity that I have. Why? Because I finally got this guy been going for him. I've been trying to connect with him. I've sent him emails. I connected with him on LinkedIn. And finally, he connected with him. He's like, hey, man, sure. Here's my cell phone number. Hey, give me a call this time and let's have a conversation. And I get on the phone. I'm being very transparent with this conversation. I've got on the phone with this guy, and I can tell he already doesn't have a lot of time. And I knew that before I got on the phone with him. And I'm like, hey, he's like, hey, how's it going? It's good to hear from you, blah, blah. And we do this initial, like, very cordial thing. And I'm like, oh, this is going well. Then he asked me a very basic question. I swear to you, Norbert. And he says, all right, so what can I do for you? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm just very passionate about, parenting and mentorship. I really just want to blah, blah, go on and on. He's like, okay. So you want to, share content? You want me to repost your content? Is that what you're asking me to do? It's like, well, I mean, that could be some of it, but I want to build upon that. And I'm very passionate. And he's like, so what exactly do you want from me? Like, what do you want me to do for you? You asked me to contact you and you want to have this conversation. So what now? And that's part of the thing. Encourage all the coaches and mentors and entrepreneurs out there. Know exactly what your service offering is. If you cannot tell me your service offer, if we were to like pause it right now, you can't write it down and tell somebody, then you need to go back and refine it. You can work with AI, go and brainstorm, whatever you need to do, but you need to have a physical service that you can provide to somebody or product that you can provide to somebody. So refine that and then refine your pitch. So you won't end up like me. Luckily, this guy was graceful and we continued our relationship. He mentored me a little bit. But I can assure you that didn't happen in the case. I had some other ones who had a small window. Hey, show up to this event. And I didn't, something happened. I got caught up at work or something, didn't follow up with them. When I didn't show up to that event, that was it. They didn't reach out to me anymore because that was their opportunity now to get to know me on a closer level. And it blew them off. So these are little things I'm sharing because these are mistakes that I've made over the last several years that I hopefully, by being transparent, people can learn from. And then the last thing I would say is when you're building your network and you have your pitch, you refine, go and sell that thing. Don't go into a room that you can't close. If you go into that room and now you have a refined product, you know who you are, do your best to never walk out of a place where you can't close. And that means that when they meet you in person, now you can act like your personality and whatever that skill or the charisma or whatever you have that you're building upon that you wanted to meet them and you wanted to show them. Now you can really thrive in front of them. So never pass up that opportunity.
Yeah. Awesome. Good tips, man. Great lessons. And this is why I love bringing coaches like you on here is so we can learn from your mistakes as well, right? And not make the same mistakes. So really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that. We all have stories like that where we screwed something up just because of, lack of experience and lack of knowledge, but at least we learn through that process. I always say you're going to pay for your education one way or another. I never completed university. I dropped out. I was actually a theater student. I'm a theater school dropout. That was my university. But man, did I pay for my education. So you're going to pay for it one way or another, whether it's the university or just through making mistakes or mentorship or coaches or things like that. Let's talk about your new book here because it has a really interesting title and I don't know anything about it. So you're gonna have to fill us in here, but I'm really curious how this fits into your mission and your message and everything that you've shared with us here as well. It's called Lead Last. What do you mean by that? What is this book all about?
Absolutely. So it's a spinoff of an old phrase. And I told people, he who leads last leads best. Now, it's a double entendre. The reason I say lead last is number one, we go into the room where we truly believe that we have to be the loudest people, especially like when I joined the Marine Corps, that was the image of a leader in my mind. Like you will be out in front. You're going to say, follow me, and they're going to follow you. Like King Leonidas on the movie 300, which is one of my favorite movies. That's what I imagine a leader is, right? But in many cases, the best leaders who I've had the pleasure of working for or with are the ones who came into the room and started looking for what everybody else needed. So they were always behind them. They were last because they were behind someone pushing them forward. And when something amazing happened by the team, man, they were beneath people lifting them up. So they never were truly out in front, aside from, formations or maybe prep rallies and things of that nature. But they never were truly out in front saying, hey, follow me. They were always trying to get buy-in and establishing an emotionally safe space for people to thrive and grow in. So that's the first reason I said leave last. And then once you start talking about being an effective leader, we alluded to it earlier, before you can be a great leader, you have to learn more about yourself first. And then you have to learn about those you're leading because you can't tell somebody that you're going to lead them effectively if you don't even know them. right? So that's why I say lead last, right? You have to get to know yourself and get to know the people you're leading. And you do all that so you can create a lasting impact on the organization. So that's what lead last is all about. And that's what the concept came from.
I love it, man. I love it. I love that philosophy. I love what that's based on. Really resonates. And I'm excited for it to come out. So this is something you're going to be launching in the spring. Is that the goal?
Yeah, that's the goal. So I was going to self-publish and then ended up working with, I'm working with Amplified Publishing Group now. And so they control my schedule a little bit more than I'm used to. So for those authors out there, just so you know, when you work with a publisher, it's a lot different from self-publishing. I was in control of everything when I self-published. Now I'm not in control of the schedule at all. I'm just waiting for my project manager to contact me and tell me what the next step is. So it's cool. I think it's the right move for this book in particular. So I'm very excited about it.
Nice. Awesome. All right. So, Olaolu, tell us about you, who you are, who you serve, how you serve them, and how people can get in touch with you. And I think you've got some free resources on your website. Tell us about that award-winning book as well.
Absolutely. So let's start with Crow from the Shadow. So Crow from the Shadow is a children's book. So it's the first one I wrote. And the reason I wrote it was to find a way, as we talked about, to connect with children. But it came from a personal spot because I'm talking about the shadow, which is I loosely defined as a person, place, or thing that tells you you cannot be what you want to be when you grow up. And I use a crow, which is an unlikely hero. Because we think of crows as just the nasty animals that pick through our trash. But I like to, I use that for a couple of reasons. Number one, crow is probably more relatable to us because it's actually a very intelligent bird, believe it or not. And it also has the ability to memorize things that we don't think that we didn't know. Crows can actually memorize faces. I learned that when I was studying about it for the book. So these are things that I learned about a crow. And really, the crow is also just trying to survive, which is a lot of us. We're just trying to survive. And so as Crow goes through the book, he's thinking about all the things. And again, it's a children's book, it's a rhyming story with a decent rhythm. He's thinking about all the things that he wants to do, but he can't do. And then he's being told by the shadow, you can't do this, can't do that, until he realizes at the end that he controls his own destiny. And that's the real reason, the last reason I used the crow, because I wanted people to be able to see a crow, children to see a crow and say, I determine my own future. So we rebranded the crow in such a way to be almost like a symbol of freedom for children and adults alike. So that's Crow from the Shadow. And really that ties in with all the books that I have. It's called the Parent-Child Connect series. And what it's designed to do is, again, for us adults, parents, teachers, mentors, coaches, anybody in that community that works with children, to sit down with those children and just read a story with them and use that story to create teachable and memorable experiences. That's what the connection is for us. That's why it's called Parent-Child Connect. It's because we're really establishing a connection and a community for us to grow. And what happened in the last few years is we scale beyond just Parent-Child Connect. Because I am an officer in the United States Marine Corps, and I love leadership. I love mentoring and working with people. I've had the pleasure of writing many articles, and there's many people I've learned from. So I've studied them over the years. And some of these things I've learned from leadership have just I knew they worked very well for parenting and professional leadership alike. So that's why you see lead last, and it goes right into my services. So I offer 3 services. The first is obviously my favorite, and that's going to schools and that's reading aloud to children. That's working with children or doing writing workshops. That's working with teachers to help increase literacy and make reading time fun. That's really my favorite of all things. It's not my most lucrative because I always tell people that they will pay for travel if it's not local. Or if it's virtual, then I don't worry about travel. But I don't charge them for the actual per diem, like for the speaker fee. I don't charge a speaker fee when I go to schools because that's my commitment. I want to go make sure that they have no boundaries aside from like paying for my trip there. So that way I'm not going completely in the hole, but at least they pay for my trip, my per diem there, so I can at least get a bite to eat while I'm there. So that's really what I do for children. I love that aspect of it. Of course, it's not the most marketable aspect of it. And I only share that because I know I'm amongst a bunch of coaches. The second thing is the one I spend a lot more time in, and that's my leadership speaking, and that's my leadership coaching. Anything under working, I love one-on-one sessions, but I like to scale beyond that. I like working with churches and organizations and schools to really focus on emerging leaders. So that when I say that, I'm talking about people who are like just starting off in a leadership role, all the way up to about that 10 to 15 year mark is usually my target range. So you're early to new leaders and some of your more refined leaders. So working with them and helping them to become more better leaders in the workplace. And then lastly, I write. I love writing articles, usually tied back to leadership or parenting, the two biggest topics I write about. And really, again, all that falls under my Parent Child Connect brand. So you can always find me at parent-child-connect.com.
Fantastic. Olaolu, this has been a great conversation. Really enjoyed it. I love what you stand for, and I love the mission that you're doing. I love the way that you've combined your work and your profession and how you earn money with your passion and mission as well, and you're able to accomplish both. And hopefully, expand this message. I hope that we can and everybody can help to share this episode and share your books with other people to get your message out there and get you speaking at those organizations and big events as well. You've got a fantastic message that absolutely has to get out there.
I appreciate you. And I'm looking forward to the opportunities that come from this conversation.
Yeah, right on. This has been a really great conversation. Really appreciate you coming here. Thank you so much, guys. We're going to leave all the links so you can connect with Olaolu as well. He's on LinkedIn. Check out the website. Grab one of these books. If you're a parent, if you're kids, that Crow book, that sounds amazing. That sounds like a perfect book that I would want to be reading to my kids. So guys, pick up a copy of that for sure. And if you're a coach, consultant, trainer, or expert, and you're looking for clarity in your marketing, just want to remind you about the free workshop that we hold. Remember, you can grab your free tickets at compassworkshop.com. That's compassworkshop.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, we need your help. Please, let's get this episode and this podcast growing. So please like, share, download, share with your networks. We would absolutely appreciate all of that so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. This has been another conversation between two coaches.